I watched a man die in a chair, not in a hospital, not in a bed, in a barber's chair on 86th Street in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, on a Thursday afternoon in October of 2003. His name was Harold Jansen, 67 years old, retired 8 days earlier after 41 years with the same accounting firm. 8 days he sat down for a haircut, had a massive heart attack, and that was it. Harold Jansen's retirement lasted a week and a day. I wasn't there when it happened. I heard about it from Tony the barber, who was shaking when he told me, but I'd been in Harold's life for 30 years. He was a customer, a good one, brought his shoes in every few months like clockwork, and I knew something that made the story worse. Harold had wanted to retire at 60. His wife Vivian had begged him. Their daughter in San Diego had begged him. His doctor had begged him. His blood pressure was terrible. His knees were shot. He hadn't taken a real vacation in a decade. But Harold kept saying, just 2 more years, just until I hit 40 years, just until the pension maxes out. And he kept going. 60 turned to 62. 62 turned to 65. 65 turned to 67. 7 extra years at a desk doing work he'd stopped enjoying somewhere around 1994 for a pension bump that his wife never got to spend with him because he was dead before the first check arrived. Now, I need you to listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because I'm going to contradict myself, and both things I say are going to be true. I believe work is sacred. I believe it with everything I have. I fix shoes for a living 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, for over 60 years. And I loved it. I loved the smell of the leather. I loved the sound of the needle going through the sole. I loved knowing that when somebody walked out of my shop, they were walking on something I made with my own hands. Work gave me dignity when everything else was falling apart. It gave me a reason to get up in the morning during years when getting up was the hardest thing I did. And I also believe that too many people are killing themselves at jobs they don't love, for money they don't need, during years they'll never get back. And they're doing it because they're scared, not of poverty, of freedom, of the silence that comes when you stop being useful in the way the world expects you to be useful. Both of those things are true. And if you're over 60 and still working, you need to figure out which truth applies to you, because the answer changes everything. Let me tell you about 2 men, 2 customers, same decade, same neighborhood, completely different stories. The first was a man named S. Gordano. Yes, another S. There were about 40 of us in Bay Ridge alone. Sal Gordano was a plumber, owned his own business, Gordano and Sons, though the Sons part was aspirational because his boys wanted nothing to do with plumbing. Sal Gordano loved his work, and I mean loved it the way I loved mine. He'd come into my shop with pipe grease still under his fingernails and talk about a job the way a painter talks about a canvas. S. You should have seen this bathroom I redid on Colonial Road. Marble tile, copper fixtures, the works. He was an artist with pipes, and when people started telling him to retire, he was 63, 64. He said, retired or what? I'm already doing what I do for free. S. Gordano worked until he was 76. He cut back, sure, stopped taking big commercial jobs, only did residential work for people he knew, but he never stopped. And he was happy, genuinely happy. He'd come into my shop at 75 with the same spark in his eye he had at 50. He died in 2014 at 81, and his wife Marie told me he was sketching a bathroom renovation on a napkin the week before. That's how you go out. Working because you want to, not because you're afraid to stop. The second man was named Arthur Greenwald, worked for the City Department of Sanitation Administrative Side, not a garbage man, though he would have been better off if he had been, because at least garbage men get fresh air. Arthur sat in an office in Lower Manhattan for 34 years, processing paperwork that meant nothing to him. He told me once, this was maybe 1998, he was 61. He said, shh, I haven't had a good day at work since Clinton's first term. 7 years without a good day. And he was still going. Why? Because Arthur was terrified of running out of money. Terrified. His father had been broke at the end. Died in a state nursing home in the Bronx in 1979. No savings, no dignity, nothing. And Arthur swore he'd never let that happen to himself. So he kept working. Every year he'd say, "One more year, just to be safe." And every year safe got a little further away because fear doesn't have a finish line. Arthur retired at 66. His wife Linda threw a party, nice party, at a restaurant on 3rd Avenue, maybe 50 people. I went. Arthur stood up to give a speech, and he said something I've thought about at least once a month ever since. He said, "I spent 34 years working toward this moment, and I just realized I wasted at least 5 of them. 5 years. That's what Arthur calculated when he finally sat down and looked at his finances honestly. He could have retired at 61. The year he told me he hadn't had a good day since Clinton, he had enough. The pension, the savings, Social Security at 62. He had enough. But fear kept him at that desk for 5 extra years. 5 years of his life traded for money he didn't need, because the ghost of his father's broke nursing home was louder than his wife's voice saying, "Arthur, come,